Hello, welcome to Forward Meet the Poet. My name's Holly, and this evening we're looking forward to listening to Rachel Long reading and talking to Kim Moore. Now, I can see that people are just logging in at the moment. So while we're waiting for everyone to get here, I'm going to talk about how the chat works. So if you hover your cursor over the main screen picture, you should see a little bar appear along the bottom. And one of the options down there is chat. And if you press on that, you get a chat bar on the right-hand side of the screen. And you can send messages there. You can ask questions of Rachel, and if there's time, she'll answer some of the questions in the chat. You could also say things like where you're calling from. If you do a message down there, do remember to press the little blue button that allows you to say who is seeing that message. So if you say all panelists and attendees, then everyone can see it. Otherwise, you can end up shouting into the void. And I'll also put very useful things down there, such as where you can buy Rachel's book directly from the publisher. So I'll just pop that there to kick us off. Fantastic. So I can see that the numbers are steadying out now, so I'll just kick off. So tonight we're going to be listening from Rachel Long and her book, My Darling from the Lions, which is shortlisted for Best First Collection. The event will take about 45 minutes and we'll be hearing poems and chat between Rachel and Kim Moore. Kim is one of the 5 judges on this year's panel. Kim's first collection, The Art of Falling, was published by Seven. It won the 2016 Geoffrey Faber Memorial Prize. Kim has also won the Northern Writers Award, an Eric Gregory Award, the Geoffrey Dermer Prize, and her pamphlet, If We Could Speak Like Wolves, was a winner of the Poetry Business Pamphlet Competition. She's a PhD candidate at Manchester Metropolitan University, and she is working on her second collection. Along with Claire Shaw, she is a co-director of the Kendal Poetry Festival. So let's welcome Kim.
Hi. Hi.
Hello, Kim.
Thanks, Holly, for that introduction. I had brushed my hair before we started, but it got in disarray again. It's really lovely to be here, and I'm really excited to be given the chance to talk to Rachel Long about her work and about her amazing book, My Darling from the Lions. I'm brandishing this in a kind of show-offy way because this is really hot off the press, so I'm not sure how many of the people listening have managed to get hold of a copy, but here it is, and lots of little ticky things, which is me marking up the poems, and then I give up because there's too many good ones. So Rachel Long is the founder of October Poetry Collective for Women of Colour, based at the South Bank Centre. She is co-tutor on the Barbican Young Poets Programme and Poetry Fellow at the University of Hertfordshire. My Darling from the Lions, the first time I read this book, I felt immediately just incredibly excited by the poems in it. It's a book which explores female desire. It explores or makes us aware of class, of racism. It's a book that's infused with biblical language. The poems also contain these beautiful, rich poems about people, particularly women. Women move through this book in all their complexity and power. Many of the poems examine the relationship between mothers and daughters. It's a book that manages to weave the personal, the social and the political seamlessly together. And I think it's also a book where conversation seems to be at the heart of a lot of the poems, whether that's that we as readers are overhearing a conversation, or whether it's poetry that expands the topics of not only what we are allowed to talk about as poets, and particularly as female poets, but poetry that expands the topics that we give ourselves permission to write about. And we're going to be talking about that a little bit later, I hope. So I'm going to hand over to Rachel now, who's going to read a poem from the collection called Hotel Art Barcelona. I should have given Rachel like this is a 2-minute warning. Aha, there you are.
It's all right. Thank you, Kim. That was a really, really beautiful introduction.
Thank you.
Hotel Art, Barcelona. We're eating roses on a rooftop. The Med beneath us. They serve clouds here too, I say. Light starter. Wink. Are they fluffy or black? The waiter doesn't answer. Every table is white except ours. We sit at a naked wood block. Antique. There's enough of an age gap here. Need they have added 200 years. The razor clams arrive in straight lines. What's the matter? We discuss kids. Maybe it's the wine, or because my belly is beginning to push against the bones of my dress. You say, I don't think I'll identify with a brown sun. Excuse me. I stand, spill your sparkling water. You only notice your steak. Contorting myself 3 ways in the toilet mirror, I decide I won't look like this forever. I don't even look like this now. Dessert is air from a porcelain pump. What if he has your eyes? I dare, after another glass. Back in our borrowed bathroom, I throw up. Rose foam, a blade of grass. Who says he isn't a daughter? I join you on the balcony. You hold me from behind, lean us over, count. We're as many stories up as our age gap. Why do you always have to? Shush. You lift my dress. I shoulder width my legs. Is love not this? Gripping a fence in the sky.
Thank you, Rachel. I didn't want to speak after that last line. That last line is love not this, gripping a fence in the sky. It just felt like it needed to hang in the air a little bit longer. So really beautiful poem, kind of sensuous, and we were speaking earlier about just the complexities of that poem. It kind of makes me angry, but then there's humor in it as well. That that time I really heard the humor, but then I feel guilty for laughing later on in the poem. It pulls the rug from under me. But I guess it contains a lot of the themes that come up in the book, come up throughout the book, and that feel of the poem as a conversation. I mean, there's literally dialogue in that poem, and I was interested when I was reading your interview with the Forward Prizes on the website, and you said the first time you went to a poetry workshop with Jean Binter Breeze, and poems felt like conversations. And I was wondering whether that idea of the poem as conversation is something you've kind of held in your mind as something to work towards, or something you wanted to explore throughout the book, or was it something you didn't realise till after you'd written the book? That, because I think a lot of the poems have that conversation at the heart of them. Does that make sense, that question?
It makes sense. It makes perfect sense, Kim. Yeah, I will forever love that my what I feel was like my true introduction to poetry and what it could be and what it could do, because I'd read it, I'd done my GCSE, and you have to do poetry. I'd done my A-levels by that point. I'd even been to university and done a creative writing degree, and I'd kind of was writing terrible poems about my exes and having kind of comments like too sentimental. But I love Jean Binter Breeze for that workshop because of the way that she fell into the poem. Like there was no demarcation between when she was speaking, and then it would only be kind of 30 seconds later, I'm like, oh my God, she's reading a poem. She's reciting a poem now. And so maybe subconsciously, I have tried to do that in my own work. But also I think that the conversation is really just important to me, like how much I have learned about myself and about the world and about the people I love through conversations, usually drunk ones, so you say more, usually in kitchens, kind of cross-legged on like a worktop in the middle of the night. How much that can potentially lend itself to poetry, because that's when I feel like I've been most honest with another human being. So maybe I don't know. I don't know if I do it on purpose, but the conversation is very important to me.
Yeah, I love that idea of conversations being where the work takes place as well. People said that to me before I started the PhD, that the most important thing will be the conversations you have with other poets. And I was like, really? I need to be reading, I need to be, you know, but it was true. It's the conversations with people that are interested in what you're writing about. I've just noticed someone's asked whether that was the first poem in the collection. It's almost like I've paid them off to ask things that, it's like I could have pretended it was like really planned, but it kind of leads into what I was going to ask talk about next, which is so it was the second poem in the collection, but the first poem is this little poem called Open, but then this poem kind of reoccurs throughout the book and slightly changes its changes its skin, or sometimes you change the pronoun, or sometimes you change the last word the poem finishes on. So, and again, they're kind of like little conversation poems, aren't they? The open poems. So maybe you could read what, either one or two, or
yes, sure. So they're like interspersed. Good plan to pay off the
audience, yeah, and maybe talk a bit about the structure of
really smart.
I'm so smooth, aren't I? Maybe talk about the overall structure of the book as well. So you've got the kind of little threads, and then the bigger sections.
Yeah, so the collection is in 3 sections, and so I would say, yeah, so it does start with a tiny little open, and it's super tiny. It's like this tiny. That's how small it is. And I wanted it to be like a door, because maybe, or it's a very small door if you have to fit through that. Maybe a door for a very small girl, or a girl who felt very small. Open. This morning he told me I sleep with my mouth open and my hands in my hair. I say, what, like screaming? He says, no, like abandon. So that opens the book. And then different, I suppose, characters in the book repeat on that open. So open, this morning she told me I sleep with my mouth open and my hands in my hair. I say, what, mum, like screaming? She says, no, baby, like abandon. And then this afternoon he told me I dozed with my mouth open and my arm over my eyes. I say, what, like hiding? He says, no, like before a surprise. I have Don Patterson also, like the most exquisite editor, who, because there was 3 that were through the first section. He was like, more of these, like could you do more of these, like can they keep recurring? And so I do have him to thank for that there are more than 3, because before it was an unnamed or unidentified man who was up to me in the first one, and then Tiff comes up, who's in another poem, a good friend Tiff, and then and the mother, who I feel like are threaded out through the collection. But because of Dawn, there are even more. And then I started to think about sleep, and dreams come up so much in the collection, and how we sleep. I've been told as well that if you're somebody who likes a lot of space in the bed, or you just kind of hate sleeping with anyone, or you kind of knock whoever you do share a bed with, if you share a bed with anyone regularly, like in the face and stuff, it's because your aura is too big and your aura takes up a lot of space. I kind of like that. I'm like, yeah, that's why I can't. That's why none of my relationships are, because my aura is too big. Your aura is supposed to be 6 foot above you, 6 foot either side of you, and 6 foot beneath you. So if
I'm
someone
so
who really
trying
steps
that.
out, I know, and then you can just tell someone, if you're like, I don't want you in my space, my aura is
I'm going to try
overstretched.
that after this. When my husband says I've got to take over having a baby, I'm going to be like, no, my aura. Stay away. Yeah, going back to, I love that what you said about Don Patterson saying, can you write more? And we were talking, we had a phone call yesterday where we were talking about being given permission, being given permission to write about things. And I guess when you were talking then, I was thinking about the different ways we are given permission. So one way is an editor saying, can you write more? But we were also talking about the permission given when you have other poets to kind of follow that have gone before you, and how important that is. And I know you said that's been really important in your work and in the themes that you've been exploring.
Massively. So to you yesterday, I'll tell anyone who's kind of ever wants to know kind of how I started writing and about the things that I do write about, was because I was given that permission by other poets, especially when I felt that they were like, or they didn't even occur. It sounds really silly to me now, but we kind of, when we know something, you're learning, I feel a bit stupid that I didn't always know something, but I remember reading Warsan Shire's Teaching My Mother How to Give Birth, and being like, oh my God, you can write about sex, and you can write about the body like that, and you can write about your mother in the same poem that you're writing about sex, in the same poem that you're writing about both your body and your relationship to your body, and also your mother's body. And then in one poem of Watson's, the dad is on the table with like a pig with an apple in his mouth, and I was just like, oh my God, you can do this, you can do all of this. This is amazing. And I remember crying and being very excited and being like, my mum is going to kill me, and then being like, I've got to write the poems, and I want them to be these things, because these are the things that have shaped me and the things that I'm really interested in. And I think that I think you can write about anything you like, and I think that women particularly have given me permission, and have opened, all the women who have come before me, I feel like have opened a different door for me and the women particularly of this generation to be able to write what we like without. And I think there still is judgment. I think there still is, that whole kind of label about confessionalism, and whether that's like real art, and we wonder who's having those conversations. But I think, permission, and who's gone before you, and who you're reading, and who's done that before, is massively, massively helpful and influential. When we spoke yesterday and you were talking, you said, I'm so glad your book has themes of hair in it, because that guy, very cut fair, that man was like, when you were first starting out, saying, no, you can't write a poem about you straightening your mum's hair.
So I was saying I was told when I was a beginner poet starting out, don't write a poem about straightening your mother's hair, because no one will be interested in it. That's women's, you know, it's just women's subject. This is 12 years ago now. I was trying to count out how many years was it, and I didn't think it was that long ago, but it was 12 years ago, which is kind of, I don't know if that's short or long, but so I was really excited to see the section in your, when I got to the section in your book, the third, is it the third section? Second section, called A Lineage of Wigs. I was like, yes, this is amazing. And just that you kind of go in there. So there's lots of poems about hair, which actually hair is a really political thing for women and men. I think I don't think I've read many poems about men's hair, but I think I said this in the I don't know if I said this in the last interview. I don't know if I've read many poems about women's hair, but there seems to be more about, and I keep spotting them now, and all the kind of political stuff that brings. I think you're going to read a poem later on from that section, but just kind of circling back round to that idea of permission as well. I guess one of the things I've taken from your work that's given me permission to do something is that it's not only permission to write about themes, but you're giving permission to circle back to a recurring image if it keeps coming up for you. So the little open poems are one example of that, but then you also do it in other poems as well. So I'd read a poem with a really striking image in, and then I would find later on in the book, I'd find that image reconfigured in a slightly different way. And it just felt like another kind of thread tying the book to the next poem and the next. And I think the poem you're going to read next, Apples, it has, well, maybe we can talk about it afterwards, because I don't want to give the image away before you get to the line, but one of the images carries on into a different poem. So maybe we'll hear the poem and then
I think I give it away with the title, to be honest, Kim. I don't think it's
And I thought, oh, it seamlessly links with what Warson Shire's poem about her dad with the
yeah, maybe. And you know what? Apples writing this book, I'll just say really quickly, I don't know if I'm supposed to read a poem, but like writing this book and then reading it back, like when it's a completely separate thing to you, so it's not even on your laptop anymore, it's something that you're also holding, and like I feel like it's gone now. Like,
oh. Rachel, you there? Oh, you've muted, hold on. Rachel did promise she was going to do yoga poses, so the fact that she's gone sideways, I think she's just doing a yoga pose, so we'll just hope that she comes back.
Can you see me?
Yeah, but you're kind of sideways, so I don't know if your camera's moved or you're yogaing.
This is so weird. No, I'm not yoga. I wouldn't do that. Not right now. I'd wait until, you know, autumn. Is that best? Am I
That's
back?
it, you're back, yeah.
I'm sorry, this hasn't done this before. I will read the poem, but just to say that apples have been really important to me in my life. I feel like as a kid, like I went through a whole phase of thinking that I was going to get mad cow disease. And so I would only eat, for about 2 years, I'd only eat apples.
Wow.
Which obviously like really worried my mother, but I've been a horrible daughter to her. But so apples, and I didn't realize, and I was like, oh, of course I've got a poem about apples. And you're only then making me see that apples are a recurring theme, but basically because I didn't eat anything but apples maybe for 2 years. So nothing goes away. The things we're obsessed with for a reason, even if we don't necessarily realize what that reason is.
This is why we get on so well. I had 2 years of only eating chips.
Really? Were you scared of getting mad cow disease as well?
No, I just didn't like vegetables. Go on, read your apples.
Oh, damn. Last night, I missed my train by seconds. So close that one part of me did catch it and waved from the window to the other half, still panting on the platform, tits play-dohing out of a shit bra. I couldn't sleep. For an hour and a quarter, the exact time between the two slices of me reaching home in separate taxis, each driven by a brother who co-owned the firm. Today, I'm assuming the recovery position. in my favorite outfit. A jumper with no knickers, the perfect hot-cold combo, like a bowl of baked crumble and ice cream. I am magazine educated, so I've known for a while now that my body is an apple. Supporting theory, I bruise so easy, I worry it's leukemia. No, the doctor says again, it's just your dark skin. She recommends scar serum. When I was bored after service, with mum still counting the collection, then insisting on sweeping from altar to street, I'd sit in front of a pillar, playing with my brain Barbie. She was brown with tattoos, and I made her have sex with a grown man in a toilet cubicle. I don't remember her face or her body, nor what I named her. Something beginning with N. When the mom of my then best friend said her daughter wasn't allowed to play with me because I was another N word, meaning Mom went round in her dressing gown to slap her silly with her tongue, then returned to scatter the kitchen and shred Dad's guardian for not sticking up for us, for never, ever saying anything. After that, I had a sleep dream in which I grew a bright green face, Granny Smith-hued, high polished. And even though I was green, I was the most beautiful woman in the world. I had the best hair and even did humanitarian work. I was interviewed about both things each night for TV.
Thank you. I love that poem as well. That's another poem where there's kind of there's touches of humour, and then you feel guilty for laughing.
I don't get on purpose, I promise. It's just like, you know, that laughter, you're gonna make you feel bad for it. No, I like laughing. Laughing is good.
Yeah, I don't mean guilty, but like there's a kind of, there's humour and then there's a darkness that kind of takes you by surprise. Very, you know, and it comes in quick succession. But I love the line about the recovery position in my favourite outfit. A jumper with no knickers, the perfect hot cold combo, like a bowl of baked crumble and ice cream. I think that's great. It's really well observed. And I get that thing that I was the circling around of images. I realised you're kind of prefiguring in that poem the Barbie poems. There's poems at the end of the book about Barbie. You say playing with my brain Barbie, and then that is kind of explored later on, isn't it? And then but the image I was struck by, that my body is an apple, and this idea that your body bruises so easy because it's an apple. And then in the next poem we have a line about someone's head being pressed down into a sofa like an apple. So yeah, I guess reading your work has made me think, rather than avoiding those images that haunt us, that follow us around, and thinking, oh no, I've written that into a poem, I'm really excited now. I think I'm going to give myself permission to go with it and just keep writing them out, because I love the way you do that. I love that it's like you push it so far in one poem, and then you take it to another level in the next time it comes around. So that's not really a question, that's just me.
Thank you. No, but I think it's a really thank you for that observation. And you also you have made me think about who gave me the permission to do that. And then I know actually that is Caroline Bird, who mentored me for a year through the Gerard Arvin scheme. And it was just, I say in my acknowledgement, but Caroline completely accelerated this collection and gave me the confidence and the permission to do so many things. But she said to me during that year, and that was ages ago now, it was 2015, but all the poems are still kind of percolating then, you know. But she said that she made me write out actually all of the phrases that I use more than once in the collection. And sometimes when I'm doing workshops, I kind of ask other poets to do this, because I found it so helpful to go through their collections like long form and write out all of the words that kind of appear more than once. So Caroline did it for me. She was like, there's wolves, bellies, red, blue, And some other things at the time, but I was like, oh my god, wolves, really? Are wolves that's kind of significant to me or my work? But I was repeating them without even knowing that I was, until someone else's eyes were on it. And to be like, yeah, like you do. And then when you put a collection together, because I've been kind of not made to, but encouraged to like look at things, and you can be like, oh, that does link to that. But when you're writing the poems, I don't know that, or I don't see those connections. But I think it's because the things that we're obsessed with, we're always obsessed with. And also Caroline said, she said, it's okay to write the same poem again and again. She's like, you might write about your mother for your whole career. And she's like, that is fine. But as long as you treat the poem like a prism, so like each time you have to turn it over, it can be, the prism stays the same. It stays a prism. You're not changing it into anything else, but you have to keep turning it so it refracts the light differently, so that it doesn't always seem like the same poem.
That Caroline Baird, she knows what she's talking about.
She knows what she's doing. Anyone would think she's on the she's on the list for best collection.
Some amazing judges must have been really discerning to choose.
Honestly, that woman, like working with her for a year, accelerated like everything.
Yeah, I love that idea of writing out the words that keep occurring in a collection. And I guess another teacher or another editor might have seen that as a weakness, or a thing to be avoided, because we've all taken poems to workshops and been told, oh, you've got that word reappearing 3 times, get rid of 2 of them. But to actually push at that and think, no, why is your mind hooking on that word? What's your unconscious trying to do, I guess, is what that exercise. So yeah, I think that's brilliant. And you mentioned you were using it as an example, writing about your mother, which again, we've planned this so brilliantly and seamlessly to move into a poem which features a mother figure. It's one of my favourites in the book, this poem. You're going to read Red Hoover next, aren't you?
I am. You will. Red Hoover. He was ridiculously good looking. He was even Nigerian, though Mum flits between this being a good thing in people and the worst. I pulled his photo up on the internet, showed her. She decided on the spot his Nigerianness was a good thing. It was easy to pull his photo up on the internet because he was an actor. I'd met him in a theatre. He'd just been awarded a £3,000 cheque for being a Nigerian actor. It was a very hot summer. I wore a black play suit belonging to my younger sister, but carried a blazer for a look that said, serious play. He offered to buy me a drink. Of course, I said I prefer to buy my own. And when he insisted, I said, okay, like it was quite inconvenient for me to agree. When our drinks were on the bar and glistening in the velvet heat, he handed the barman his check. Ha ha ha, said the barman. Ha ha ha, I said. Stop, the ridiculously good-looking Nigerian had jokes. On my lunch break, I found a clean bench to call him from. We were awkward. I wanted him to ask me out. Why wasn't he asking me out? Mum began asking after him. Where's that good-looking Nigerian? Don't tell me you've ruined it already. The second time, I spread out on my bed, swung my legs up the wall, cold and good for my nerves. It was a short call because he had to go. Someone was knocking. Okay, I said, like it was of no inconvenience whatsoever. I slid my legs back down the wall. A week later, I was standing in his living room wearing my coat, or it was over my arm, my shoes still on. Either we were just about to go out, or I'd just arrived and he hadn't yet said, here, let me take your coat, or please take off your shoes. He was running all over the house. Upstairs, then down, zooming around. He was running a bath, then letting the water out, only to fill it back up. He ducked into a cupboard and yanked a Hoover, a red Hoover. He began hoovering everywhere. He even hoovered the ceiling. He just walked up the wall, and as he did, looked over his shoulder at me on the floor and said, "This won't take long, I just have to." When I told Mum, she shook her head, laughed, half lemon, half sugar. "He's crazy," she shrugged. "God's showing you it won't work out because he's all over the place." Shame. That good-looking man. Nigerian, she sighed. Always into something. I'd still look him up on the internet sometimes, just to keep up to date with his plays, the BBC dramas. Then I stopped. For years I didn't think of him. Okay, perhaps, but in a loose and smirking way, playful, no serious pining. What was there to pine, really? Then, in bed, one night, watching an adaptation on my laptop, the ridiculously good-looking Nigerian walks across the screen. His name escaped my mouth, half sigh, half whistle. I say it like damn, I say it like man, where have you been? He has a few lines. Then he's stabbed on a street I recognise, having danced down a long time ago, long before I met him at that theatre with his cheque folded into his pocket. I remember our 2 awkward phone calls and him hoovering his ceiling, and I laugh into my pillow as he bleeds out.
That's a fantastic poem. That's another one. I'm sorry, I forget in an actual reading you can laugh and it doesn't kind of disturb anyone. But...
You were going to make me laugh. I was like, don't laugh at your own poem. It's even worse than laughing at your own joke.
Oh, that's brilliant. Fantastic. And I wanted to ask you quickly about, so there's the Nigerian in that poem who's obviously, you know, we get a kind of picture of him, but I think the character that really comes through for me is the mother in the poem. She's so, you know, kind of a force to be reckoned with, but also she has the best lines. And I think in a lot of the collection you do these amazing poems about women, and the women are, I noticed the women are always named, whereas the men aren't named. But there's also the mother figure that kind of comes in and out of a lot of the poems, particularly the hair poems. So maybe could you talk a little bit about that, about writing about women in particular?
Kim, you've gone a bit. Can you hear and see me okay? You've paused on my screen.
You've paused on my screen, but I'm moving. We can hear you still. Rachel? Are you there, Rachel? If you can hear me, the way that you've paused, it looks really normal. I just thought you were really considering my question then. So you're not. So someone's saying, I can hear Kim, but Rachel is frozen. Rachel's disappeared and left me here. I'm hoping that she'll pop up in a moment. Hi, Holly.
I think
Holly to the rescue.
Well, I was going to say, it looks like she must have some form of connection issue, because we had that bit earlier when she was on her side, and now she's disappeared, and it's very sad because we're 7 minutes before the end. So what I wonder is, Kim, and you might hate me for asking this, but would you read a poem of Rachel's?
Yes, no, I won't hate you. I'd love to read a poem of Rachel's. What a treat. Much better than me blathering on and trying to fill the space. Shall I read the one she was going to read next, which is Communion?
If you do that, and then I'll see if we can get her back on for the end, but if not, we might have to sign off without her. But right. Thank you.
Oh, poor Rachel. Anyway, so Rachel was going to read a poem called Communion next, which is after a photograph by Deanna Lawson. I think Holly will pop the link up to the photograph in the chat after I've read the poem. You don't need the photograph at all to appreciate the poem. I just thought it was interesting. It kind of sent me off, you know, poems that send you off down a rabbit hole to find out other stuff. Rachel, I was just about to massacre your poem. Hold on, you're muted. Can you?
I'll unmute.
Brilliant. I was just about to read your communion poem, but thank goodness you're
Were
here.
you?
Yeah,
Oh
I
my
was going to
God,
do
can
it.
I read it?
Yeah,
You
no,
might
you.
be really weird to read it. I'm sorry, I don't. This has never happened before. It is a new house, and I can't, like, I don't know exactly where to kick the modem thing. Did you want me to? You had a question. What were you asking?
Don't worry, because we've only got 5 minutes left. Do you want to read your communion poem?
Sure.
Because if the sound's going to work, it's a little bit delayed. Just say something, Rachel, and see if it works.
Hello.
That's working again now. Go on.
Yeah, I'm okay.
Yeah.
Stupid internet. Communion. After Deanna Lawson. This is after a photograph by a photographer that I love called Deanna Lawson. Behold the miracle of Afro hair. Blackness so complete, you could put your hand in, never get it back. Recognize the shark eyes of boredom, the dial of two women tending to every hair on your head, cussing a curve into a needle, thick thread spooling. The scissors are just there, but teeth are closer. Ever sat for 13 hours in the same chair, scalp sliced so many times you can't recall if you are girl or railroad? Ever not received what was meant to be in the bag? Softness, what happened? Ain't never seen no half white hair like this. Choose a new version of yourself every 2 to 3 months. Be Russian, Hawaiian, virgin, at 8, 16, 22 inches. Go electric blue, blonde, Faith Evans Auburn. Enter the shabby palaces named after the high priestesses, En Vogue, Cleopatra, Rihanna, promising next to nothing. Not an appointment, good service, politeness, a mirror that you'll leave before dark, to be left with half a head so another customer can be squeezed in for Ghana braids. You're kidding if you think that box of wings and chips won't be eaten over your fresh weave, leftover finger grease used to smooth it. Lord, grant me the serenity and deliver me from the Titanic song by Celine Dion on Everlasting Pull Up. Radio warbling atop wet towels, but it's either Celine's heart going on and only a phone calls about papers. Oh, you're the blackest you might ever be in here. Stop pulling away from the crepe roll of her belly over tightest jeans. Let it rise, rest on your earlobe. Dare to breathe regular on her hand. Jackie, Marcia Tapp, the omnipresent aunties who won't flinch or say you breathe too heavy. When you are finally dead, you tip. She pockets it saying, these little white pick-me-them always have money.
Sorry, I just muted myself.
Oh, okay, good. I thought my connection's gone again. I was like, I can't hear you.
No,
Okay,
well,
good.
I've muted so in case it would help with your connection, because sometimes it does, doesn't it? I'm glad you managed to get back to read that poem, and let that be a message to any editors telling us we can't write about hair anymore. I'm just going to get that poem out and be like, excuse me.
You can write about hair, you can paint about hair, you can photograph hair. Like seeing that photograph of Deanna Lawson's called Communion, that's where the title comes from, and I just remembered it completely. It just transported me back to basically spending my whole adolescence sitting in a hairdresser's chair, like, and I was like, oh my god. And then I could write the poem, you know. You can. Yeah,
and that line about having the chicken wings wiped on your
oh my god. Oh my god.
It's brilliant. There's so much I wanted to we wanted to talk about. I've just been given permission by Holly to go over a little bit. If you're okay to go over.
I am, as long as
yes.
the internet doesn't work against us. I'm happy. Yeah.
Okay, brilliant. Because yeah, I feel like we've been a bit shortchanged on your poems. We need more poems, because the next poems you were going to read are from the third section of the book, which is the dolls, about the dolls and the Barbie dolls. And you were going to, I suggested maybe reading the two poems together, one after the other.
Yeah. So after this one, read. About the dolls specifically.
Sorry, you froze again then. You were going to read Steve, weren't you? And
yeah, I'll read
maybe
Steve.
The interview with Barbie afterwards.
Yeah. Okay.
But if you want to, if you want to say anything in between, that's fine. But basically, I'm going to shut up so you can.
Steve, I will just say that Steve, because some people don't know Steve, and even when I introduce Steve, it's like in a problematic way, even though I've tried not to. People know like Barbie and Ken, and like Steve was bought out by Mattel or Mattel, however you say, whoever makes Barbie. But Steve was the black one, which is the first line. But that's how I kind of introduced him, which is problematic. But I can't think of a way around it. And many people don't know who Steve is, but they know who Barbie and Ken is because no one got bought Steve, basically, and no one asked for Steve. And yeah, I know, but this is what the poem's about as well. So Steve was the black one. Mum must have bought him for us. We wouldn't have asked for him. He was ugly. Of course he fancied Princess Barbie, but her blue sparklies was strictly for Ken. We'd make them have sex. Surfboard chest against pert rock breasts, slap and click of plastic against plastic. We'd make Steve watch, dunk him in the bath to cry. Ken would beat Steve up for fun till past bedtime. We'd wait to find Steve sprawled on the daisy carpet, butt naked. The beatings got worse. Slashes across rubber legs, face coloured in all red. The beatings got more frequent quickly before school, before Mum sees under the table. It got so bad, even Dad complained. His lawnmower was jammed. On closer inspection, a tiny pair of shorts, charred torso.
I knew I wasn't going to say. I said I wasn't going to say anything, Rachel.
Interview
but that poem,
with. Oh no, go on.
I just found that poem. It's kind of. I find it really chilling. It's kind of starts off funny again, like we'd make them have sex, and in the book it's it's spelt out, but then kind of really chilling, especially in the current climate with the Black Lives Matter protests and everything. It kind of took on another. And I'm guessing you wrote it, before all of that happened, before the Black Lives Matter protests were happening. But it took on this other atmosphere then. But yeah, sorry. Anyway, and then you got.
No, don't be. I think it is. It's supposed to, like, I wanted it to be a chilling poem. Like, even though we used to make, me and my sister would make Ken beat Steve up. So there's and I wanted to write the poem, and so even though me and my sister will laugh now, like, remember what we did to Steve? And then she'd be like, oh no, it's like really deep. But we won't say the words like, you know what, Maria, I think that was internalized racism that we were enacting out on our dolls. We never said, we know that, like, between ourselves, but and also I think the poem knows that, but I didn't want to write an internalized racism poem that was knowing, I wanted or maybe I was offsetting some guilt from myself onto the dogs, perhaps.
No, I think what you said about internalized racism is really interesting, and it reminded me of there's an Audre Lorde quote about I wish I had the quote to hand because I'm going to misquote Audre Lorde now, which is like a
I always
cardinal
misquote,
sin.
so.
But she said something about the oppressor, getting rid of the oppressor within is like one of the hardest things to do, which I think this poem kind of deals with and negotiates. And I think there was a question came in from someone called Tamsin Cottis. I don't know if she's
I love Tamsin. Hi, Tamsin. Tamsin's beautiful. Tamsin's a brilliant poet.
She was talking about how your work is really, she finds a lot of kind of daring and bravery and in a lot of your poems, and I think for me that's one of the most kind of daring poems in the book, to kind of confront internalized racism and but do it with that kind of humor at the same time. And she asks the question if you've got any tips for a more timid writer and where you get your courage from.
I wouldn't say that Tamsin in particular is timid, but I think the book deals with a lot of shame and I haven't got enough shame for writing half of the things that I have in this book, or I've got too much shame and I needed for somewhere for it to go. I would just say, like, write the poems that you want to and need to write, and don't worry about how they're going to be received, because if you worry about that before you've written it, then they won't get written. And once they're in a book, you can hide it from the people that you're most ashamed of reading it. Maybe.
That's amazing advice. Basically write them and then worry about it later.
Yeah, worry about it later. Worry about it later.
Yeah. Brilliant.
Yeah, shame absolutely drives this book. Shame, learning shame and unlearning shame, and also it goes back to what we were talking about women, what we're allowed to write about, what we're not allowed to write about, and also just for all people, like what can you say and what can't you say. Like, the poem will take anything, the poem will let you say anything, and it will never be like, you can't write that, you can't say that, you can't think that. That's why I love them, I think.
Yeah, brilliant. Thank you. Will you read the interview with Barbie?
Yeah, this is totally on me offsetting my shame, like being like, oh well, I'm not going to interview myself about why I did that. I'm going to interview Barbie because it was Barbie's fault.
It was Barbie's fault.
It was Barbie's fault. Barbie, everyone knows Barbie's a bitch. Interview with B, take 2. Before he moved in, it was, I need to get my Barbie voice on. I try and like think about, she's a bit more like messed up in this poem. Before he moved in, it was peaceful. All picnics, barbecues on blanket beaches, long drives in pastel convertibles. My Kenny had an army Jeep, which he got for an absolute steal from Sips Tea, a neighbor. He said when I rode in it, I became even more perfect. The contrast, my angel face against the camo. Steve tried to threaten Kenny. Kenny was just retaliating, just protecting me. Steve wore bright red swim shorts, too bright. Everything about those people is so, you know. Steve ripped those right off. My brave bull tossed them into the sea. Steve was so black he never bruised. I mean, crime went up in the area, tools all over the beach. My Kenny having to keep a fork, a real fork under his pillow. I said, baby, leave it, forget him. But Kenny said it was the principal, and I giggled. Kenny says my giggle is intoxicating. He unvelcroed my ball gown right there on the beach. We plays with pendant. When I awoke it, that's the right word, isn't it? Kenny was gone. My phone was back at the log cabin along with my shoes. Otherwise I would have called or shrugs. I don't like to talk about this. Okay, fine. He went looking for Steve, found him, walking home from the pool bar he worked. Ken crimped him into the back of the Jeep. There was punching, kicking, spitting, force. I mean, allegedly. Rolls the eyes, stops out cigarette. But you know the worst thing? Turns to Ken. Tell them, baby. Tell them what you told me about the blood. How it couldn't even well in his eyes. You're on mute, or it's me.
I'm unmuted.
I keep thinking it's me. Yeah, okay, that's good.
No, it's me.
Silly.
Yeah, I'm turning off in the hope that the connection. Yeah, thank you. That was absolutely kind of chilling poem again. Just as chilling in a different way, and then the moments of humour again. I've just been told by Holly we need to wrap up now. She's here to keep control of us. Quick, Rachel, do something uncontrollable that Holly can't stop, because she can't touch us.
It's so much fun listening.
Need another poem, Rachel.
Quickly. Oh, wait.
But then when will I post the book? And the book should be posted, because everyone needs to go out and buy this book. And the link to buy it direct from the publisher is in the chat. If you go to the top of the chat, I put the link there. I want to thank both of you. That was a really, I mean, enjoyable is wrong, because there's some poems there which are really tough, but at the same time, it felt like you were enjoying that interview, and we enjoyed it with you. And I also want to thank
I have loved talking to Kim. Kim, thank you, and thank you, Holly.
Thank you. Sorry.
I was just going to thank everyone who stuck with us through all those technical hiccups.
Yeah, thank you everyone as well. I don't know, I'm really embarrassed. I made sure I got good internet, you know, like I didn't go for a cheap package. Like I made sure I got good internet in my new house, and it's still messed up. I'm going to be on the phone to BT in the morning.
Well, we did do a tech rehearsal, so we did try.
We did everything. Don't worry, I'm getting a refund for this month. I'm going to be like, look here.
We're going to be back next week, where we'll be saying hello to Natalie Diaz, whose book doesn't look like this is a proof. Her actual book is a lovely dark teal colour. But come back for that. And also, I'll log off in a moment, but what I'll do is I'll leave the webinar open after we say goodbye, so you can look up any links in the chat. I'm also going to put a link in there to our Forward e-magazine Creative Critics competition. That's our competition for 16 to 18-year-olds, where they are invited to write a poem responding to a poem on the Forward Prizes shortlist. So if you work with or know any 16 to 18-year-olds who are writing poems, that might be one for them. So thank you so much for coming. Thank you again, Kim.
Thank you.
Great.
And thank you, everyone. Thank you, audience. You love me. Bye bye. Thank you.